It is an honor to be with you all today. And again, for another exciting training. Whether you're in a relationship or single, I want you to remember and understand that the most important relationship you'll ever have in this life is the one with yourself. You are going to spend more time with yourself than anyone else in the world. You might be laying down next to someone when you go to bed, but you are dreaming by yourself. You can't bring someone else into your dream. Okay. And even on my journey, I'm from a family of 8, 2 Nigerian immigrant parents, and grew up in a really crowded home. All I craved was freedom. And I felt like because I shared everything, all of my clothes were hand me down, everything about my life I had to share. All I wanted to do was be free and learn about myself. And so some of you know about my travel background. I've been to 87 countries, around 6 continents. 90% of those travels have been solo. And it's amazing because even though I was traveling to all these places, the biggest journey that I was connecting was head to heart and passion to purpose. Traveling all these places, but I was getting closer to myself. And the most beautiful thing about these trips were I was getting to know myself on a deeper level and allowing myself the permission to figure out, how do I want to be loved? How do I want to show up in this world? What is my relationship with myself? Do I even love myself? I'm going to take you through something that I've done over the years to help me love myself even deeper. Because how many of y'all know when you love yourself even more, you can love other people better? When you have more self-love and compassion for yourself, you show up better for other people. And that's what it's about, okay? There's a cliche that says, you show people how to love you by the way you love yourself. And the people that are seeing the way you love yourself, maybe they're like, oh, well, we see that she doesn't, respect herself in this way, so we can go ahead and just take advantage of her in that way. And there's always this elevator analogy that I think of. When you're getting on an elevator, let's say it's with a friend that you've known for over a decade, you get on that elevator and you click the penthouse. You're ready to go to the top. You're on this journey. You are going to the top of the elevator. Your friend gets on the same elevator, but they click floor 9. Now, when floor 9 happens, a lot of times your friend will get off the elevator and they'll have this expectation that, hey, we've been through 9 floors together. Come off on floor 9 with me. But you've already decided that you're going to the penthouse even before they came on. And it is up to you to love yourself enough to say, hey, friend, I love you. This is your stop, but I'm going to stay on the elevator and keep going because I know my journey is deeper than this. I'm hungry. I know I was made for more. I know I deserve more, and I'm ready to keep going. Okay, so S, setting boundaries with people who aren't growing with you. Eat alone every now and then. Get dressed up and take yourself out. Okay, tell your partner to watch the kids, tell someone to babysit, but I need you to take yourself out to eat because you would be surprised how much you'll learn about yourself by how uncomfortable you are with sitting alone. People will judge you, people will stare, people will ask if you're waiting for someone. And again, because I've traveled to so many places and I've eaten alone so many times, I always remember the question that I get asked, and it always made me feel some type of way. But I would be at a restaurant and I'd be table for 1, please. And they would say, oh, just 1. And they would cock their head and they would look a little bit like pitiful, like, oh, just 1. And I'm like, yes. And I would order a bottle of champagne and I would be all dolled up. I was like, it is a celebration of self. I'm celebrating life. I am celebrating that I'm still breathing, that I have an opportunity to chase my dreams every single day. So yes, just 1. Thank you very much. But what I also learned is when I was eating alone is that I was also more approachable. Oftentimes when you go out to eat with someone, you're focused on them, as you should be. You all are in deep conversation. Maybe it's one person or it's with a circle of friends. But when you're by alone, when you're by yourself, you almost become an enigma. People are like, let me go introduce myself. Let me go talk to her. Let's swap stories. And especially, this was so important, especially when I was in other countries where I didn't speak the local language. I didn't know the traditions. I was still learning, taking notes for whatever articles or assignments I was in that country for. So it was an amazing way to also do research on the country because people were like, oh, well, this person, she's not from here. Let me go talk to her and see what her story is. And you get to meet some of the most fascinating people. Feel free to bring a book. Feel free to bring your journal. Feel free to do something that occupies your time so you're not just, sitting there. But oh my goodness, I challenge and encourage you all to eat alone at least once a month. Take yourself out, get dressed up, and just treat yourself, because it is beautiful. I love it. Let people know your love language. Now, if you're not familiar, I think everyone is familiar with Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages book. We have words of affirmation, acts of service, gift giving or gift receiving, quality time, and physical touch. So many of us, a lot of times we struggle with relationships with ourselves, with others, with family, is because they don't know how to love us in the way we want to receive love. And for a lot of my friends, they thought words of affirmation was my love language. They were giving me all of this affirmation. They were encouraging me. They were loving on me verbally. And they didn't know that that was actually a trigger for me. It was actually very uncomfortable. Again, growing up in a Nigerian home, we didn't get compliments. We were never told, I love you, I'm proud of you, good job. That just wasn't language in our home. So when people told that to me as an adult, I was so uncomfortable with it. I was like, this is not, no, please. And I had to learn that, like, okay, Glow, people don't know this. Like, let them know that acts of service is the way that you want to be loved. Like, you got to be clear with the way that you want to receive and give love. My favorite way to give love is gifts. I love just pouring into people and just showering them with presents and quality time. But the way I like to receive love is actually acts of service, because I'm a very servant-driven leader. I'm constantly serving other people. And when you're always serving others, who's going to serve you? That's why acts of service is my favorite love language. That's the way I like to be loved. And I had a lot of awkward conversations and awkward encounters with friends, because even though they were affirming me so much with words of affirmation, every time I needed them, they wouldn't show up. And I realized, like, what is this disconnect? Like, I need to let them know that if they actually want to show that they love me, they need to be, acts of service. When I say that I need them, like, I need them to show up. And that for me was huge. Learn your love language, and then also let people know your love language. Free yourself from people pleasing. I'm currently reading a book by Oprah, her latest one by Oprah and Dr. Bruce Perry, What Happened to You? And my goodness, this book is heavy. It really talks about all the biological changes and shifts that happen due to childhood trauma that manifest in our adult lives. So many of us think, well, if it happened 20 years ago, oh, I'm fine, I'm over it. But it's like our brains are literally biologically transformed by things that have happened to us in our childhood. And reading this book has been so just freeing for me, because a lot of times the people who struggle the most with people pleasing are the ones who were constantly criticized in the homes that they grew up in. And I remember it was like, I was a pastor's daughter. So everything was like, not enough, not doing well enough. And I held on to that. And so I grew up feeling like, oh my gosh, the only way to get love from people is to make sure I never make them upset. And so I avoided conflict. I avoided conversation. I avoided any type of confrontation that might potentially lead to someone being upset, and that is not healthy. My goodness, Brene Brown says it perfectly. Clear is kind. When you are clear about what is and isn't okay, that is kind. It's an act of kindness to yourself and to other people. No ambiguity. There's no room for ambiguity on this journey of self-love, okay? So being direct with people, they might have been able to get away with taking advantage of you in the past, but let them know this new you no longer tolerates that. 5 ways that you can build confidence. The first thing, affirming activities. I love Jay Shetty because he said this quote. He said, every year he's always learning, loving, and launching something. You always need to be learning, loving, and launching. When you are learning something, it's a humbling place to be. You're not going to be good at it. You're going to be a beginner, and it's not going to be confidence boosting. But when you are loving and launching something, you're in alignment, you're walking in purpose. So at every point in your life, you should be learning, loving, and launching. So what are those affirming activities that you're doing to remind you of how far you've come? Okay. So the first one, affirming activities. The second thing, affirming friends. Affirming friends. Guys, insecurity and confidence don't speak the same language. Get new friends. I had friends that used to project their insecurities on me. They would like shame me for having habits, but every day you should have an alarm, or you should set an alarm that has 3 words that remind you of yourself. Or for me, I also like to do things that are like affirmations. So I'm like, I like to tell myself daily, like, this is all a part of God's plan. This is God, you're building God's kingdom. That's something I tell myself daily. So when I see that, little notification come on my phone, it gets me re-excited. And a friend tried to shame me for having that like habit. And I was like, man, what is it like to be so insecure with yourself that you shame someone for like wanting to like walk in alignment? I was like, I don't need you in my life. Yeah, have affirming friends, people who are also building legacies, people who also understand that life is temporary and what you build is the only thing that lasts forever. Like, how many of you guys have picked up a book that's 200 years old? How insane is that? 200 years ago, someone wrote a book not knowing that 200 years later, Glow would come walking through and finds it in a used bookstore. How cool is that? You do not know how far your story is going to reach, okay? So number 1, affirming activities. Number 2, affirming friends. Number 3, affirming documentation. I record time lapses. I watch the sunrise every single day. There are so many things that I do every single day that remind me of like, oh, I'm building something. And I like to look back on those time lapses like, oh, I remember when I was launching that. Affirming documentation. When you're recording yourself on video because you want to share it on Instagram, or maybe you don't share it, but just having it so that you can look back on it to remind yourself of like, oh, I remember that season of my life when I was getting ready to launch my podcast and I recorded a video of it. Anytime I'm feeling really vulnerable or in a season of like change or transition, I like to have these like video diaries where I'm like, all right, the day is, March 7th, quarantine day 385. And here's how I feel. And here's what I'm doing. But I love to document those small everyday moments because you're going to look back and be like, wow, I was so confused in that season, but I showed up anyway. There's a lot of people who you can scroll through my Instagram and you won't know the times where I was battling depression and I was just so confused and so unsure. I talk about it later on, but in those moments, I show up anyway because I'm like, someone needs me. I'm like, Glow, I don't feel it today, but someone else needs it. And like, again, daily, I recognize my privileges. Daily, I recognize my blessings. And I'm like, there's someone else who's probably going to be in bed when they're watching my video. And I'm talking to them about purpose. They're going to need this. So I'm going to record the video. And then I don't care that I don't sound, like a woman. I need to really stop joking about that. Maybe my next therapist appointment, I need to unpack that. Okay, number 4, affirming consumption. Now, this is on the extreme side, but I created a second Instagram account to follow friends because on my main page, I only want to see personal development, business strategy, entrepreneurship, positivity. And I notice like I love my friends, but if they're posting junk, I'm missing the stuff that I actually need to see. So I had to create, if you notice, Brendan only follows like 100 people. He knows what he's doing. He's got to keep the noise out. Social media is a very loud place. And if the stuff that you actually want to see is drowned underneath everyone else's like pictures of food, I don't know, baby announcements, congratulations. I'm happy for you, but I'll congratulate you from my other page, because if I have 15 minutes to scroll on Instagram every day, I need to get the best of the best. I want to make sure I'm getting affirming consumption. And the last thing, affirming rest. How can you be confident when you're always in a hurry, always overwhelmed, always triggered, always stressed? Okay. 7 hours is like my minimum. 8 is my standard, but I need 7. And there's different like sleep devices. You can have like a Galaxy Watch or an Apple Watch that can track your sleep hours and your REM cycle, your deep sleep, your light sleep. And again, to any new mothers, you guys are in a different ballpark, and I'm sorry. And I hope your baby starts sleeping soon. I know like new parenthood is a different story, but when you can get to that place of like, maybe it's sacrificing an hour of Netflix to go to bed an hour earlier. I set my phone every day, and it's automatic now because I've trained my phone to do this. And 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., I am unreachable. No one can access me from 8, like literally my phone goes on do not disturb, meaning that calls get blocked. If someone tries to call me after 8 p.m. or before 8 a.m., it won't even go through. It'll just say this user is not accepting calls right now. They got a text or send an email. Actually, text messages can't even get through until I've turned off Do Not Disturb. And what's great about that is it allows me 12 uninterrupted hours to focus on me, to like start winding down for the day, to start preparing for the day, like having my morning routine and like saying affirmations to myself, journaling, working through like, okay, what is my plan for the day? High performance planner, wink, wink, you know, giving myself time to like fill out all those prompts and schedule my day accordingly. Literally, the world could be on fire. I won't know until 8 a.m. Sorry, I won't know until I turn my phone on and I tune in. And that's a boundary I set for myself to help me affirm my rest. So again, affirming activities, affirming friends, affirming documentation, affirming consumption, and affirming rest. Discipline is a controlled form of behavior. When you are undisciplined, it means you let your emotional responses dictate how you act. When you have discipline, you are showing a controlled form of behavior. Discipline is the skill, focus is the byproduct. Build the skill of discipline and focus will become the byproduct, guys. Stop trying to be great at something and aim to be disciplined at it. Because when we aim for greatness, it feels like a very, I don't want to say a selfish pursuit, but it just seems like self-serving. But when you want to be disciplined at something, discipline breeds mastery. Discipline becomes like, I want to be so good at this that I become a master at this skill that now I can teach my community how to also become masters at this. Okay, guys, like this is, okay. Now I'm going to go into 3 ways that I personally increase my focus. There's an app called Toggl, T-O-G-G-L, Toggl desktop app, T-O-G-G-L. This is a Google Chrome plugin, and it's also an app both on Android and iPhone. So a lot of you guys, sometimes you approach your day without discipline. So instead of you're wondering like where your time went, tell it where to go instead of wondering where it went. So if you use the Toggl app, you can track, I'm spending 4 hours on emails. One thing as well, when it comes to focus, no, we can no longer be people who check our emails 10 times a day. Like bless, you know, my sponsors and my partners and people that I correspond with, but they know if they don't catch me in the morning, then they're going to catch me in the evening. And if they miss me in the evening, they'll get me tomorrow. Nothing is an emergency. And when I have that own self-discipline with my time and how often I'm checking my emails, I'm able to focus more of my undivided attention on the task at hand. So make sure you have a discipline around how much and how often you're checking your emails. And I know this might vary depending on the working relationship and the boundaries that's already been established. So unfortunately, this can't be the rule for everyone. But if possible, try to find a way to only check your email twice a day, maybe 3 times max, morning, afternoon, evening. That way, you're not constantly in responsive mode, like reactive mode, like just, oh, like I got to constantly react to other people. And I believe Brendan Burchard said this at High Performance Academy, I think a couple years ago, but he was like, email is nothing more than a list of other people's agendas. Your email is nothing more than a list of other people's agendas. Shout out to Brendan, because that stuck with me 2 years later. It still sticks with me. Okay. So again, the Toggl app, T-O-G-G-L. The second thing that I do to increase my focus, my phone goes on Do Not Disturb from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And when you put your phone on Do Not Disturb, even if people try to access you, your phone blocks it. Not in a, harmful way. That sounds really rude. Your phone will block people. They just won't, it'll, if someone tries to call you past 8 p.m., it'll say this person is not receiving calls at this time. How respectful. That's really nice. Isn't that like a really cool boundary to set? Like, it's not even that this person doesn't want to talk to you. It's this person is not receiving calls at this time. The person on the other side of that is now aware of the boundary you've placed for yourself because of your own disciplined focus. You have said from 8 p.m., which should be your winding down hours, because just like you have a morning routine, you should be having an evening routine as well. If you are falling asleep to Netflix, am I calling some people out? Let's stop falling asleep to Netflix and Hulu, guys. Like I understand we need those decompressing hours, but I want the last hours and the last minutes of my day to be spent reading, because what then happens is when I'm sleeping, I'm marinating on the words that I just read. So I love to read like the Zen stuff. I'm reading some Zen Buddhism stuff because it's really helping me just be more calm. So when I read that before bed, I'm now dreaming. Well, I imagine myself dreaming and just marinating in this dream, this other dimension, wherever we go when we sleep. We create these alternative realities, but I imagine myself marinating on those words. And when I wake up, I find myself in a really peaceful place. Okay, so that do not disturb is really important. 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Those are my personal boundaries. You guys can, 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., whatever you want it to be. And the reason I said until 8 a.m. is because if I'm waking up at 5, that means I have 3 hours of uninterrupted meditation, journaling, prayer, workout, whatever I want my morning to be. Because a lot of us are trying to start our days pouring from an empty cup. We haven't even filled our own cup yet. And we've got the demands of the world, work, our partners, our kids. There's so much. And I admire so many of you that wear so many hats and show up for so many people. But understand, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And you cannot be your best self if you are constantly running on responsive mode, just responding to what the world throws at you. Excuse me. Okay, so that's the second thing. The third thing is one thing at a time. You have 80 tabs in your browser and you feel like, oh, I'm just accomplishing so much because I'm working on this project. I've got this tab open, like enough of that. We are going to no longer praise that type of approach because I used to like brag about how multitasking like I could be. I'm like, oh, I could do this, I could work out while I'm also reading, and then I can also do this and send that email. No, guys, people, whatever you're working on, they deserve 100% of you. Like, give unfocused, undivided, dedicated time to one task at a time. Because what's then going to happen is you're going to enter this thing called flow state. Flow state is the most beautiful thing. Guys, momentum is so lucrative. When you enter flow state, things just start clicking. But you can't enter flow with one task if you are spread across 10 tasks, okay? So make sure you're allowing yourself the capacity to work on one thing at a time. And when we wake up with to-do list every single day, what does your to-do list look like? Are you the kind of person that writes 20 things? Somehow you feel like you're Beyonce and you can accomplish 20 things in a day. Guys, we are not Beyonce. We are normal human beings. I'm just kidding. We really have to approach our days more realistically. Because what I used to do is I would say, okay, today's going to be a good day, Glo. You're going to wake up at 5 a.m. We're going to write these 20 things. We're going to accomplish them. Like, oh, we're on fire. And I'll get to noon or I'll get to 3 p.m. and I've checked off 2 boxes. And out of 20 things, I've checked off 2 boxes. And then the rest of my day, I'm sulking over what I haven't accomplished yet. And then what happens? By the next day, I wake up in deficit with negative 18 because of all the things that I did. And so now I have negative 18 plus the new 10 things that I miraculously need to accomplish by the next day. Okay, I want you guys to give yourself more grace and be a little more practical with the things that you put on your daily to-do list. No more than 3. And if you guys can find ways to simplify your day-to-day approach to just 3 manageable tasks, you guys will be so much more manageable and you'll be able to give yourself a lot more grace, okay? So one thing at a time, no more multitasking. And with your to-do list, no more than 3. So today's message is going to be about advanced mindset and resiliency. I traveled for 7 years. That was my career in my 20s. I was a travel blogger. And I remember when I was in Montenegro. Montenegro's in Europe. It's in the Balkans. It's a beautiful country, probably top 5 for me. And I was walking and I was just exploring. And I remember I was getting those peculiar stares. I was used to the stares. I'm a solo Black woman. I get it. I'm in a country that doesn't have many Black people. There were those stares, but this stare was different. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep on going with it. Little did I know that, Europe, number one, is a very big tennis tennis continent. You have Djokovic, Nadal, Federer, all came from Europe, and they're massive global tennis stars. And little did I know, I resembled Serena Williams. And so the stares weren't about like, oh, it's just another Black woman. It was like, oh, we have this American tennis star in our country. All of these people thought I was Serena Williams, and they were trying to get my autograph. And I didn't know this about celebrities, but when they travel, a lot of times they don't want to be bothered, so they use an alias name. And I was like, no, I'm Glow, I'm not Serena. No, Glow, please, Serena Williams. And they were begging me and telling me that, no, we know that you're Serena. Please just, take a picture with us. And it was so funny, but I was like, I was literally trying to outrun the paparazzi. And I got back to my hostel, and I go out to dinner later on, and there's this one Russian man who was still able to track my whereabouts. And, as I say this out loud, it sounds a little bit creepy, but it was genuine. He had kids that loved Serena Williams. And so he said, Savina, please, for my kids. Savina, please, for my kids. And so what did I do? Got my pen, signed Serena with a smiley face, and let him on his way. That is resilience. Not the kind that we're going to talk about, but it's resilience nonetheless. And I want to talk to you guys about how when there's something that you want, no matter the circumstances, you will find a way to get it. That's entrepreneurship. That's life. But advanced mindset, I want to break down an acronym here, because advanced mindset, it comes down to your mind. So I want you guys to write out MIND, and we're going to break down a mind framework that's going to help you have a more advanced mindset. The first one, M, mission, a mission that can change the world. A lot of us are still operating from a very selfish place. And I speak from experience. When I was travel blogging, all I wanted to do was travel the world and get paid. So some of you guys have to understand, like, what is it about your skill set, your career, or your industry that you can attach to a greater cause? Maybe because of personal experience or overcome trauma. Think about it. If you're a nutritionist that overcame a disease, how can you now teach on holistic wellness? Okay. If you're a business coach, maybe, who overcame poverty, how can you now attach socioeconomic issues as a part of your branding, as a part of your messaging? Take your own personal story and attach it to a larger mission, because that's what's going to make you stand out as a leader, make you stand out as an entrepreneur, and just make you stand out in your industry in general. Intuition to speak up when it matters. Leadership is easy when things are going well. It's easy to be a leader when you don't have to actually lead on hard stuff, okay? And I was like, ooh. And I found myself like really having to feel convicted about what leadership means, and that intuition to speak up when it matters most. Because sometimes controversy is necessary in a teaching moment. Figuring out how to take something that could be controversial and turning it into a teaching moment. Every single thing that I post, you'll never find, my page is not about drama. My teaching style, my education style, nothing is about drama or gossip or hatred. That's not where I come from. It's lessons, it's learning, it's teaching, because that's intuition as a leader. Like, okay, this needs to be spoken about. How can I speak about it in a way that no one else has covered? With grace, compassion, with light, okay? Intuition is having the ability to recognize a moment that can set your core values apart from everyone else. It is easy to do what everyone else is doing. It is easy to speak like everyone else is speaking. The hard thing is to pause and to reflect. And when you're about to speak out on something, how can you do that inner work of saying, okay, can I see myself in this situation? Have I done something like this before? Okay. The next one, N, nuanced navigation. And it's funny because I was like, what is nuance? We use it a lot of times, but we use words sometimes and we're like, wait, what's the actual textbook definition of nuance? Nuance is a subtle difference, a subtle change of expression, okay? And a lot of times you're going to navigate through life not always needing to go with the flow of the world. And whether your business mission is to change the face of education, maybe your business mission is to change the face of marketing, again, because your advanced mindset is going to be more forward thinking. There's going to be a larger cause that you've got to attach your branding to. But you have to have nuance in your teaching, in your decision-making, in your integrity, in your values. You have to be able to recognize what's for you and what's not. Okay, don't chase things. Attract them by the way you show up. Don't chase after things. Attract them by the way you're showing up in the world, okay? I think a lot of times, especially as a beginning entrepreneur in my 20s, I was still so hungry to fit in, hungry for purpose, hungry for finances because I was broke, trying to figure out like, where do I go? And your navigation, your GPS system has to have nuance. If you are going the direction of everyone else, you might not be doing it right. You might not be doing it right, because leadership is going to take you to pause. It's going to force you to slow down. It's going to force you to detour sometimes. It's going to force you to put something in reverse, put the whole vehicle in reverse and say, okay, I went down this path because I saw everyone else doing it, but maybe this isn't actually where I'm supposed to be going. Okay, nuanced navigation. There should always be a subtle difference in the way you're speaking up, in the way you're showing up, in the way you're leading, in the way you're educating, in the way you're providing, in the way you're serving. There should always be nuance, okay? And then D, diligent. You want to be careful, conscious, and committed to your work. It is so easy to let the glitz and glam of success and life just overwhelm you and make you feel like everything you've done was on your own goodwill, okay? You have to be careful, conscious, and committed, not just to your work, but to the mission, and staying connected to the community that you're trying to help. And you do this by dedicating yourself to a cause that is greater than yourself. And I remember I was, I think 27, I was in Jamaica the first time my blog hit 6 figures. And that was, up until that point, that was my only goal. I wanted to get paid to travel. I wanted to have a 6-figure blog. Once I get there, I'm rich, woo! I think my first year as a full-time travel blogger, I made $7,000 the entire year. So the idea of a 6-figure blog was so out of reach that I was like, if I can get there, maybe one day if I get lucky. I was like, oh, I'll just kind of stop, like, because that's all I need. And what happened when I reached 100K? Spiraled. Went into a 3-week episode of depression. Because when you put so much value on money and not your core values, not your integrity, not a mission, you lose yourself. I was so, that moment of a 6-figure blog, I put so much weight in that. I didn't know what I needed to feel, but when I got there, I didn't feel anything. I was expecting like maybe my shower was going to feel different. Maybe glitter would like pop under my balloons or pop under my pillows. Balloons would come from the sky. Like, where is my party? Like, I've had this goal. Where's the celebration? Didn't feel anything. In fact, I regressed. I felt, I stopped reading. I stopped praying. I stopped reading my devotional. I lost sight of myself. And so it's so important. Have financial goals, but my goodness, have a mission first. Have a mission first.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.